I want to bring in our guest now to discuss this. Trial attorney Michael Jaafar, he's in Detroit, also in New York, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Thank you both so much for joining us. I mean, I agree with you, Marie. Okay, and Michael, what's your take? When Matt talked with her, she said, he asked her, how are you dealing with this? And she said, moment by moment. It's not easy for her.
Clearly, her husband had a second life, and this was not something within his character that was like apparent to people around him, like his wife and his friends and family. And so, for me, it doesn't shock me that she's shocked. It's not out of the ordinary. So her response and her body language, to me, looking at it, it seemed to me like she was sincere. It seemed to me like she was, shocked, destroyed. And how do you digest something like that? You just found out that the man, the father of your children, the man you've been living with for decades, is accused, and you saw she's watching. She told Matt Johnson she was watching the coverage. So when you watch the coverage, you see prosecutors, and you see, not prosecutors, investigators holding press conferences, and they say, we've got reams and reams of evidence. We've been watching it. They found bones. They didn't find bodies. They found bones, right? So clearly they've been casing this guy for a long time. And so to her, she looks at it and says, my husband did this. He's in a world of hurt. My life is destroyed. My kids are going to have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. I can't trust anybody ever again. So her body language, to me, looked like a person who's sincere, looked like a person who is dealing with a lot and dealing with just a gigantic load falling on her shoulder. This is when you see people result in alcohol dependency, drug abuse. This is one of those things that you watch on TV and it happens to you and you're living that life. It's absolutely awful for her.
It is awful. All right, Michael and Marie, thank you so much. Okay, stay with us. We're going to talk with you a little bit later on. Okay, here to discuss this case, trial attorney Michael Jaafar in New York, and in New York also, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. The jury is out deliberating a little bit over an hour and a half so far. Michael, I want to start with you. I don't know if I was that crazy about his rebuttal argument, but I did like that last point. He was talking about how the victim here has started powerlifting. She did not cry wolf, he is saying, as defense counsel was trying to argue, but she's powerlifting now, so nothing like this happens to her again. What did you think of that argument?
Yeah, if this victim really was raped, you sympathize for it, and she's a woman. She was, I mean, if it happened, right, she was overcome by a man who was significantly bigger than any man she's probably ever encountered, right? So you would sympathize with her. I have a daughter, right? So obviously, I would never want to see this happen to any woman ever, ever. Right? But in terms of his emotion, in terms of the efficacy of his closing argument, it was good. It was good. I think he was doing the best he could with the kind of the circumstantial nature of the evidence. It didn't, it doesn't help their case. I've never seen a prosecutor have a perfect case. So the imperfections in this case, obviously, are the fact that the victim's mom was a rape nurse. She basically got ahead of the ball, let her colleagues know at the hospital, hey, she was raped. She's coming in to see you. Many years went by between the alleged incident and when the charges were posted. The charges were posted the day after it was announced that his team would go to the Super Bowl. So it's not a perfect case. So the prosecutor, I think, was doing the best he could. That last comment, to respond to your point, it was a good comment. He was doing the best he could. But I feel like that's not going to be what the jury goes into the room with. Maybe it'll have some sort of a modicum of impact, but I just don't, I think he was doing the best he could, and I think his closing arguments, I would rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate them a 7.
Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree with Marie. So Marie and I have been in private rooms with clients who pleaded their cases to us, and we can both kind of imagine what the first meeting was between those attorneys and their client. He would have gotten in the room and said, guys, I promise you, I didn't do this. I have these big hands. It's a tiny truck. It would have been impossible for me to do it. And one more thing I want to add, and I might be attacked for saying this, but I can't help but realize or take notice of the fact that the NFL still has not yet suspended him. The NFL routinely suspends players for mere allegations. They clearly looked at the evidence here. His attorneys clearly met with the NFL and told them, look, this guy was in a small truck. These charges are bogus. It would be an injustice for you to suspend this person, right? And he was not even an important player for his team, for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he played one snap on special teams. He was not an important player, and they still haven't suspended him, right? Even though he was not an important player. Had this not happened, he might have been suspended anyway because of not being an important player. But they didn't even suspend him. It's been years, and he's still on the team. He's still on the roster. So, and the NFL is a $500 billion business. They must have looked at the evidence here, and this would have been one of the pieces of evidence. And they must have made the conclusion. They definitely made the conclusion. Hey, let's not even suspend this guy. Let him beat these charges, and he'll come back. But whereas they've suspended players even just for allegations, right? Really important players they've suspended for allegations. This is not an important player. So the fact that the jury is asking about this, I agree with Marie. I think there's too much reasonable doubt here that he actually committed this felony.
All right. Thank you so much. Love to hear from both of you. Stay with us. We'll ask you some more questions later on. But yeah, I mean, Marie, it's like as if we wait for Congress to come up with a solution. These are just going to keep happening. Something more needs to be done. I will say, Michael, I don't know if you have any thoughts on what took place here, but I did like him talking about, one of the gentlemen talking about the metal doors. The doors are hollow, so the bullets went right through them. I mean, that should be something done immediately. Let's go inside all these schools. I know it's going to take a lot of money, but let's go into all of these schools and make sure there's some doors that aren't hollow. So in case this happens again, maybe at least we've started somewhere. Let's get some action.
And it's going to happen again, right? It's going to happen again. So in the United States, we have the most amount of school shootings per capita than any other country. I think I forget the statistic, but like the next like 58 countries like combined, like we have more than like pretty much the majority of the world, right? So, you know, when me and my wife and my kids were in Florida, we actually got in the car and we drove to that school. This was in 2019 in the winter. We drove to that school and we stopped by and we walked around, and I wanted my wife and my kids to see that. It was sad. Well, most people don't know about Parkland is like that. Parkland itself is a very beautiful city, right? It's like the most opulent city suburb of southern Florida, right? It's kind of close to Fort Lauderdale. It's a beautiful place, and we were struck with the feeling we had when we those pictures you're showing. Like I walked my kids past that sign. And even though we went there years after the incident, there were still flowers and memorials. It was sad. It stuck with me, right? I agree with Marie. Congress is always going to be where it is. The politics are always going to block a ban on guns, but putting doors that can block bullets, that have immediate locking mechanisms, like there's stuff that can be done, because this is going to happen again. So yeah, it's sad, but in terms of the civil case, the burden is lower. I could see why this theater is important, but I don't think they're ever going to feel justice.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, you see these school shootings that we just talked about time and time again. I know back decades ago, I covered school shootings out in San Diego, the Santana High School shooting, the Granite Hills High School shooting. There's just another one after another one. I just wish something more could be done because Congress doesn't seem to be getting the job done. Marie and Michael, thank you so much for joining us.